Hi, my friends, tonight. We're stepping into a world where the Nile weaves life into the desert sands, where towering monuments touch the sky, and where the hum of everyday life echoes across time. Imagine the cool pre-dawn air as the first rays of sunlight stretch over the river, glinting off its gentle ripples. You're about to wake up in ancient Egypt. Let's be honest, you probably won't survive this. No air conditioning, no modern medicine, and forget about a decent cup of coffee. Before you fully sink into your pillow, a quick like and subscribe would mean the world if you're into sleepy stories like this. Got a strange bit of history you want to hear before bed? Drop it in the comments. Tuck yourself in, slow your breathing, and let the past keep you company tonight. The first sound you hear is the faint splashing of water against the banks of the Nile. Birds begin their morning chatter as the golden orb of the sun creeps above the horizon. Your family is stirring too. Your wife rolls out her reed mat, while the children rub their eyes, ready to greet another day. Life starts early here. The air still holds a coolness that will soon give way to the unrelenting heat of the desert sun. The scent of barley bread baking in a clay oven wafts through the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of the river. Your family eats simply bread, perhaps a few figs and beer brewed from emmer wheat. Yes, beer for breakfast. It's thick and nutritious, almost like a liquid loaf of bread. Your mud brick house built with care, but showing its years is small but functional. The plastered walls are bare, save for a few practical tools hanging in the corner. A sickle for harvesting a fishing net, and a small basket for carrying provisions. The roof is flat, a perfect spot for drying grains or catching a breeze at night. Today is a work day, as most days are. You'll head to the fields soon, walking barefoot along the packed earth roads that crisscross the village. The Nile, ever present, is your lifeline. Its annual floodwaters have receded, leaving behind a fertile black silt that ensures a bountiful harvest if the gods are kind. You say a quick prayer to Happy, the god of the Nile, just in case. Your neighbors are already up, some carrying baskets of fish freshly caught in the river, others balancing jars of water on their heads. Children dart between the adults, chasing each other with bursts of laughter. Even in these early hours, the rhythm of life is palpable, a symphony of survival and community. Work in the fields is grueling. You bend low, planting rows of barley and wheat, your back aching under the relentless sun. There's no room for complaint. The survival of your family depends on this labor. You glance at the horizon and see the overseer making his rounds. He's not unkind, but he carries a stick as a reminder of the authority he holds. During a brief break, you sit under the sparse shade of a sycamore tree, wiping sweat from your brow. Someone passes around a jar of water, its surface cool to the touch thanks to its clay exterior. You take a long sip and look around. The fields are alive with activity, men and women working side by side, their voices rising in a rhythmic chant to keep the work steady. The noon sun is merciless, and the day's work ends earlier than you'd like, leaving just enough time to tend to your household chores. On your way home, you stop by the river to wash up. The water is warm now, reflecting the fiery orange of the setting sun. You can see small boats gliding across the surface, fishermen casting their nets with practiced precision. Back at home, the evening meal is modest. Your wife serves a stew of lentils and onions flavored with a hint of cumin. It's not luxurious, but it's filling. The children chatter about their day, their faces illuminated by the flickering light of an oil lamp. You smile at their energy. They're a reminder that even in a world of toil, there's room for joy. As the day winds down, you climb to the roof to catch a breath of fresh air. The stars are impossibly bright, their light undisturbed by modern pollution. You lie back, gazing at the heavens where the gods dwell. Your body aches from the day's work, but your heart is full. Life here may be harsh, but it's rich in its simplicity. Night passes swiftly in your mud brick home, and as the first light of dawn creeps into the sky, life begins again. Today is Market Day, an event that adds a rare splash of excitement to the rhythms of your world. The marketplace is a hub of energy and opportunity, drawing farmers, artisans, traders, and even priests from neighboring villages. You rise early, bundling a small offering of goods to trade perhaps a handful of barley, a clay pot your wife crafted, or a woven basket. The walk to the market is as familiar as the lines etched into your hands. Along the path you join a growing stream of villagers, their baskets swinging and their voices rising in anticipation. The marketplace is alive with sounds, smells, and colors. Merchants call out their voices, competing with the braying of donkeys and the laughter of children darting between stalls. The scent of fresh bread mingles with the tang of fish laid out on woven mats. Brightly dyed fabrics flutter in the breeze, a testament to the skill of local weavers. You trade your barley for a small jar of honey, a rare treat, and your wife's clay pot for a handful of dates. Haggling is an art form here, a dance of words and gestures that often ends with both parties walking away feeling victorious or at least satisfied. In the corner of the market, a scribe sits cross-legged under the shade of a palm tree, surrounded by scrolls and pots of ink. He's a figure of quiet authority, recording transactions for those who can afford his services. Literacy is a rare skill, one that commands both respect and coin. You glance at him with a mix of awe and curiosity before moving on. Nearby, a troupe of entertainers captures your attention. Dancers swirl in colorful garments, their movements graceful and hypnotic. A musician plucks at a lyre, his melody weaving through the air like the threads of a tapestry. For a moment, the weight of daily survival lifts, replaced by the sheer joy of being alive. Not far from the dancers, a priest stands at a small altar, offering blessings in exchange for donations. The statue of a god, perhaps Hathor, the goddess of joy, presides over the scene, its eyes inlaid with obsidian that glints in the sunlight. You pause to leave a small offering, murmuring a prayer for health and good fortune. The market isn't just a place to trade goods, it's a crossroads of information and ideas. Gossip spreads like wildfire here. You overhear talk of a nearby noble commissioning a new tomb, an event that will provide work for many laborers. There's also mention of a visiting envoy bringing news from distant lands. Though your world revolves around the Nile, the echoes of far-off places remind you of its vastness. As the sun climbs higher, the market begins to wind down. Traders pack up their goods and the crowd thins as people return to their homes. You make your way back, your basket lighter, but your spirits lifted. The honey and dates will bring a smile to your children's faces, and the stories you've gathered will fuel their imaginations. The afternoon is quieter. You spend some time mending a fishing net, your hands moving with practiced ease. Your eldest child watches intently, eager to learn. The bond between you is unspoken, but strong, a thread that ties your family together. Later, you venture to the riverbank to check on the papyrus plants growing there. These reeds, so abundant and unassuming, are the lifeblood of Egyptian writing. You marvel at how something so simple can be transformed into scrolls that carry the weight of knowledge and history. As the day begins to cool, you take a moment to reflect. The market reminded you of the interconnectedness of life here. Every transaction, every conversation, every gesture is a thread in the intricate tapestry of your world. In the distance, you hear the faint strains of a hymn drifting from a nearby temple. The melody is hauntingly beautiful, a reminder of the divine presence that permeates every aspect of life. It's a sound that stirs something deep within you, a sense of wonder perhaps, or the simple comfort of belonging to a greater whole. Back at home, the evening meal is a small feast. Your children savor the honey, their faces lighting up with delight. Your wife smiles her hands, busy weaving a new basket. The simple joys of the day linger, carrying you through the fading light. As the stars begin to twinkle, you once again climb to the roof, lying back to gaze at the heavens. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of light, its beauty as timeless as the Nile itself. You close your eyes, the events of the day replaying in your mind. Life here is hard, yes, but it's also rich in ways that modern comforts can't replicate. The day dawns crisp and bright, and the Nile glistens like a ribbon of liquid gold under the first rays of the sun. Today, the rhythms of your life revolve around the river, your source of sustenance, transportation, and spiritual connection. As an Egyptian, the Nile isn't just a body of water, it is life itself. You make your way to the riverbank, carrying a woven basket filled with tools, a curved sickle, a small wooden shovel, and a pair of fishing hooks. The fertile black soil beneath your feet, known as kemet, crumbles easily, a gift from the annual inundation that brings silt from distant lands upstream. This flood, the Akhet, is the heartbeat of Egyptian agriculture, and its rhythm governs your year. The morning air buzzes with activity. Farmers work side by side tilling the soil and planting barley and emmer wheat. These grains are the foundation of your diet, transformed into hearty bread and beer. You nod to your neighbor, who pauses briefly to straighten and wipe his brow. His children scurry nearby, their laughter mingling with the calls of waterfowl and the steady creak of oxen pulling wooden plows. Nearby, you see a small irrigation canal branching off the river. Water flows steadily through it, filling shallow basins that ensure every crop is nourished. The shaduf, a simple yet ingenious lever system with a bucket attached, helps lift water from the canals to higher fields. You take your turn at the shaduf, the repetitive motion of raising and lowering the bucket oddly soothing. Around midday, the sun blazes overhead and the pace slows. You rest under the shade of a sycamore fig tree, sharing a simple meal of bread, onions, and dates with your family. The bread is coarse, gritty, even as the grinding stones often leave traces of sand in the flour. It's a flavor you've grown accustomed to, though the occasional indulgence of a honey-drizzled loaf remains a cherished treat. In the afternoon, you turn your attention to fishing, a crucial part of life along the Nile. You wade into the shallow waters, casting a net with practiced precision. The river teems with life. Tilapia, catfish, and eels glide through the currents, while papyrus plants sway gently in the breeze. Catching enough fish to feed your family isn't guaranteed, but today, luck is on your side. The net comes back heavy, and you smile at the thought of your wife grilling the fish over an open flame tonight. As you work, you remain watchful. The Nile is as dangerous as it is bountiful. Crocodiles lurk beneath its surface, their powerful tails propelling them silently toward unsuspecting prey. You've heard tales of villagers losing livestock, and occasionally lives to these predators. Hippopotamuses too can be aggressive, their sheer size making them a force to be reckoned with. The river isn't just a provider of food and water, it's also a highway. You see boats gliding by their sails, catching the afternoon breeze. Most are simple wooden skiffs used for fishing or transport, but occasionally a larger vessel appears carrying goods for trade. Papyrus, scrolls, linen, and pottery are common cargo bound for markets along the river. A priest aboard one of these boats catches your eye. Dressed in pristine white linen, he clutches a small offering, a jar of perfumed oil, perhaps bound for a temple farther downstream. Temples along the Nile serve not only as places of worship, but also as administrative centers, granaries, and repositories of knowledge. Their walls are adorned with intricate carvings depicting gods, pharaohs, and scenes of daily life, a visual testament to the interplay between the divine and the mortal, As evening approaches, the landscape takes on a softer hue. The golden light bathes the fields and reflects off the water, turning the world into a living painting. You gather your tools and your catch, making your way home. Along the path, you pass clusters of lotus flowers blooming in shallow ponds. The lotus, a symbol of rebirth, is sacred to your people, a reminder that even in the face of hardship, life persists. Back at home, you set about preparing the fish. Your wife grinds spices with a mortar and pestle, releasing a fragrant aroma that fills the air. Cooking is an art, and she takes pride in her skill, transforming simple ingredients into a meal that nourishes both body and soul. As the meal simmers, your children play nearby, their laughter a soothing backdrop. They've fashioned toys from clay and reeds, small figurines, balls, and even a rudimentary board game resembling Cine, a pastime beloved by Egyptians of all ages. You join them for a while, moving pieces across the board and sharing stories of your own childhood. The evening meal is a communal affair. You gather around a low table, sitting cross-legged on woven mats. The fish is tender and flavorful, complemented by a thick porridge made from barley and a side of pickled vegetables. As you eat, the conversation flows easily, touching on the events of the day and plans for tomorrow. After dinner, you step outside to enjoy the cool night air. The village is quiet now, the only sounds the distant croak of frogs and the rustle of palm fronds in the breeze. You gaze at the sky, marveling at the brilliance of the stars. The constellations tell stories of gods and heroes, their patterns as familiar to you as the lines of your own hands. You think about the river and its unyielding presence in your life. The Nile connects you to the past and the future, its waters carrying not just goods but also stories, traditions, and memories. It is a reminder of your place in the grand tapestry of existence, a single thread in a pattern that stretches across time. As you prepare to retire for the night, you feel a deep sense of gratitude. The day has been long and tiring, but it has also been rich with moments of connection and purpose. Life along the Nile is far from easy, yet it is full of beauty and meaning, woven into the fabric of everyday existence. You climb onto the roof of your home, a woven mat serving as your bed. The air is cool and refreshing, carrying with it the faint scent of lotus and freshly tilled earth. You close your eyes, listening to the gentle lapping of the river and the distant call of an ibis. The world around you fades and sleep takes you, carrying you into dreams of golden fields, shimmering waters, and the eternal rhythm of the Nile. The sun rises over the desert sands, casting long shadows across the landscape as you find yourself at the bustling center of your village. Today isn't just an ordinary day, it's Market Day, a weekly occasion that brings together merchants, farmers, and artisans from nearby communities. The market is the beating heart of trade, where livelihoods are made and gossip flows as freely as the goods exchanged. You make your way toward the market square, carrying a bundle of papyrus scrolls tucked under your arm. These scrolls, painstakingly crafted from reeds harvested along the Nile, are prized for their versatility. Farmers use them to tally harvest, scribes record sacred texts, and merchants keep track of debts and exchanges. Your family earns a modest income selling these scrolls, which ensures you're never far from the vibrant swirl of market life. As you approach, the sounds hit you first, a cacophony of voices, bartering children laughing and donkeys braying as they haul carts laden with goods. The air is thick with the mingling aromas of fresh bread spices and livestock. A sharp whistle pierces the noise, and you step aside as a man drives a herd of goats through the narrow street. The market itself is a kaleidoscope of colors. Linen dyed in shades of indigo saffron, and crimson flutters from wooden stalls, while baskets overflow with fruits and vegetables. Figs, dates, pomegranates, and cucumbers glistening in the morning sun. Artisans proudly display their wares pottery adorned with intricate patterns, finely woven mats and delicate jewelry made of faience and semi-precious stones. You stop at a stall where a blacksmith hammers a glowing piece of metal into the shape of a sickle. Sparks fly as his hammer meets the anvil, and you marvel at the precision of his work. Tools like these are essential to the agricultural life of your community, and the blacksmith's craft is highly respected. Nearby, a potter demonstrates his skill spinning a lump of clay on a simple wheel and shaping it into a graceful vessel. You set up your bundle of papyrus on a small wooden table, carefully arranging the scrolls to showcase their smooth, creamy surfaces. It doesn't take long for your first customer to approach a scribe who examines the scrolls with a practiced eye. The negotiation is brief, and soon you're tucking a small pouch of copper deben into your belt. As the morning progresses, you take the opportunity to wander through the market, savoring its energy and variety. A baker offers you a sample of his wares, a small piece of honey cake that melts in your mouth, sweet and rich. You thank him with a smile and move on, pausing to admire a musician playing a harp-like instrument called a lyre. His fingers pluck the strings with practiced ease, and a small crowd gathers to enjoy the melody. In one corner of the market, you notice a group of priests dressed in immaculate white robes. They've set up a small altar complete with offerings of bread, beer, and incense. It's a reminder that even here, amidst the hustle and bustle of trade, the gods are never far from people's thoughts. A few villagers pause to offer a quick prayer, seeking blessings for successful transactions or protection from misfortune. The market isn't just a place for goods, it's a crossroads of stories and news. You overhear a farmer complaining about a poor harvest, blaming the unusually low floodwaters of the Nile this year. Another merchant boasts about a rare shipment of cedar wood from Lebanon, a luxury material coveted for its durability and fragrant scent. Travelers bring tales of distant lands, of the bustling streets of Memphis, the grandeur of Thebes, and the mysterious deserts that stretch far to the west. Your attention is drawn to a group of women haggling over a bundle of herbs. One of them is a healer, easily identified by the small pouch of dried medicinal plants hanging from her belt. She gestures animatedly, describing the uses of each herb: fenugreek for fever, myrrh for wounds, and cumin to soothe upset stomachs. You can't help but be impressed by her knowledge, which has been passed down through generations. By midday, the market reaches its peak. The square is crowded and the air buzzes with excitement as people finalize their trades. A merchant loudly proclaims the quality of his wares, holding up a bolt of fine linen that gleams in the sunlight. Another offers a demonstration of a new type of plow, its metal blade designed to cut through the soil more efficiently. You find yourself drawn to a storyteller standing on a makeshift platform. His voice rises and falls dramatically as he recounts the tale of Osiris and Isis, the eternal struggle between good and evil, and the triumph of life over death. The crowd listens intently, hanging on every word. Stories like these are the lifeblood of your culture, a way of preserving history, values, and identity. As the afternoon wanes, the market begins to wind down. Merchants pack up their unsold goods. Farmers load their carts, and the crowds thin. You make a few last-minute trades, exchanging a handful of scrolls for a basket of fresh dates and a small clay oil lamp. The journey home is quieter, the excitement of the market replaced by a sense of satisfaction. The bundle of goods in your arms is a tangible reward for the day's efforts, and you can't help but smile at the thought of sharing the fruits of your labor with your family. Back at home, you're greeted warmly, and the rest of the evening is spent enjoying the spoils of the day. The dates are sweet and succulent, the oil lamp casting a warm, flickering glow as you gather around to share stories of the market. As the stars begin to twinkle in the sky, you reflect on the interconnectedness of your world. The market is more than a place of commerce. It's a microcosm of life itself, a space where people come together to share not just goods, but ideas, traditions, and aspirations. It's a reminder of the resilience and ingenuity that define your community, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who call the Nile Valley home. The faint golden light of dawn spills across the Nile, its surface shimmering like liquid gold as you rise from your mat. Today is a work day, and the rhythm of your life is dictated by the agricultural calendar. The Nile's seasonal flooding has receded, leaving behind fertile black soil, a gift from the river gods. This gift, however, comes with its own demands. The fields must be prepared, seeds sown, and irrigation channels maintained. Your family owns a modest plot of land, and like most farmers, your daily routine revolves around its care. You grab a wooden hoe, its handle polished smooth by years of use, and head toward the fields. The walk takes you past other villagers starting their day, some leading oxen to graze, others carrying bundles of reeds or pots of water, balanced expertly on their heads. The field is already alive with activity. Men and women work side by side, their laughter and chatter blending with the rhythmic swish of tools slicing through soil. The air smells of earth, damp and rich, as you begin the laborious task of turning the soil. The wooden hoe bites into the ground, breaking up clumps and preparing the land for planting. Its hard work and sweat soon trickles down your back, but there's satisfaction in knowing that this effort will feed your family. Nearby, a group of children plays by the irrigation channels, their laughter ringing out as they chase one another. These channels are the lifeline of your farm, carrying water from the Nile to the fields. Maintaining them is a communal effort, and you pause to join a group of neighbors clearing debris and reinforcing the banks with mud and stones. The work is repetitive, but the camaraderie makes it bearable, even enjoyable. As the morning progresses, the women begin scattering seeds across the prepared fields. They move with practiced efficiency, their hands deftly sowing barley and emmer wheat, the staple grains of your diet. The seeds glint in the sunlight as they fall, tiny promises of sustenance for the months ahead. You can't help but marvel at the cycle of life, the soil, the seeds, the water, all working together in perfect harmony. A farmer nearby begins singing a work song, his voice rising and falling in a soothing cadence. The others join in, their voices blending into a melodic rhythm that seems to echo the natural flow of the Nile. The songs often tell stories of gods and heroes, or simply recount the joys and struggles of daily life. They're a reminder that even in toil, there's room for celebration and connection. By midday, the sun blazes overhead, and the heat becomes oppressive. You retreat to a shaded area near a cluster of date palms where a simple meal awaits. Bread, cheese, and a few dates provide the energy needed to continue the day's work. Someone passes around a jug of beer, a thick, hearty brew made from fermented barley that quenches your thirst and lifts your spirits. The break also provides an opportunity to catch up on news and gossip. One neighbor shares a tale of a crocodile spotted near the water's edge, prompting nervous laughter and a flurry of warnings to keep an eye on the children. Another speaks of a traveling merchant who brought rare spices from distant lands, sparking curiosity and excitement. As the afternoon wears on, you return to the fields, this time to oversee the irrigation process. Wooden shaduffs, simple counterweighted systems, are used to lift water from the canals and distribute it evenly across the fields. You take your turn at the shaduff, feeling the strain in your arms as you lift and pour, lift and pour. The system is ingenious, a testament to the resourcefulness of your people, and its steady rhythm lulls you into a meditative state. You pause to watch a herder drive a small flock of sheep through the fields, their woolly bodies swaying as they graze on leftover stalks. The herder waves and you wave back, reminded of how interconnected your lives are. His sheep will provide wool and meat, just as your grain will provide bread, creating a delicate balance that sustains the entire village. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the landscape, the pace of work slows. Take a moment to admire the beauty of the Nile Valley, the vibrant green of the fields, the gentle curve of the river, and the distant outline of the desert beyond. It's a scene that has remained unchanged for generations, a reminder of your deep connection to this land. The day ends with a ritual of sorts. A small offering is made to Hapi, the god of the Nile, in gratitude for the river's bounty. A handful of grain is placed in a simple clay dish accompanied by a few words of thanks murmured under your breath. It's a humble gesture, but one that underscores the reverence you feel for the forces that sustain your life. Back at home, the evening is spent in quiet reflection. You sit with your family sharing a meal of porridge and roasted vegetables, the fruits of your labor. The flickering light of an oil lamp casts shadows on the walls as stories are exchanged, some humorous, some poignant. As the stars emerge in the night sky, you lie down on your mat, muscles aching but heart full. The day has been long and tiring, but it's a good kind of tired one that comes from knowing you've contributed to something larger than yourself. The rhythms of your life are simple yet profound, shaped by the land, the river, and the community around you. Each day brings its own challenges and rewards its own moments of beauty and connection. And as you drift off to sleep, the sounds of the Nile gentle and eternal lull you into dreams of another day in this timeless land. The Nile River is not just a source of sustenance for your crops, it's the lifeblood of your entire world. It threads through your daily life like a ribbon of liquid silver, shaping the economy, culture, and spirituality of your community. Today, you'll accompany a small caravan down to the riverbank, where a flurry of trade and activity awaits. The morning sun bathes the water in a golden light as you approach the bustling docks. The air is alive with the sounds of shouting traders, the bleating of animals, and the occasional slap of water against wooden boats. Sturdy reed skiffs and larger cargo vessels crowd the shoreline, their decks piled high with goods. The smell of fish mingles with the sweet scent of dried fruits and the faint tang of freshly cut papyrus. Your first task is to help load bundles of grain onto one of the boats. These boats, called barks, are the workhorses of the Nile. Made from papyrus reeds or wood, they are lightweight yet sturdy, perfect for navigating the river's calm waters. The grain will be transported downstream to a larger town, where it will be sold or stored in granaries. It's backbreaking work, but there's a sense of pride in knowing that your harvest is part of a vast network that keeps Egypt thriving. Once the loading is complete, you take a moment to observe the other trades happening around you. A fisherman displays his catch-fat tilapia and wriggling catfish, while the potter lays out rows of gleaming, freshly fired jars. Merchants haggle over everything from linens dyed in brilliant indigo to fine alabaster vases carved with intricate designs. The bartering is animated and intense, with voices rising and falling like a symphony of commerce. Nearby, a scribe sits cross-legged on a mat, carefully recording transactions on a sheet of papyrus. His reed stylus scratches out neat rows of hieroglyphs, detailing quantities, prices, and agreements. Scribes are essential to the smooth running of trade, their work ensuring that disputes are kept to a minimum. You marvel at his speed and precision, wondering how long it took him to master this skill. As the morning unfolds, the docks become a microcosm of Egyptian society. You see men in simple linen kilts working alongside women adorned with delicate jewelry. Children dart between the adults carrying small parcels or chasing each other in playful games. There's a sense of unity here, a shared purpose that binds everyone together regardless of their role or station. One particularly eye-catching scene involves a camel caravan arriving from the desert. The beasts of burden, their humps swaying with each step, are loaded with exotic goods, frankincense, myrrh, and lapis lazuli. The merchants who accompany them wear colorful robes and speak in accents that mark them as foreigners, adding a touch of mystery to the bustling marketplace. The Nile itself is a hive of activity. Boats glide gracefully along its surface, their sails catching the breeze. Some are simple fishing vessels, while others are grander ships carrying officials or priests. You notice a larger barge adorned with painted eyes on its prow, a common superstition meant to ward off evil spirits and ensure safe passage. By midday, the sun is high in the sky and the heat becomes almost unbearable. You find shade under a cluster of palm trees where a small food stall offers refreshments. The vendor hands you a bowl of lentil stew and a piece of flatbread, both flavored with garlic and cumin. It's a humble meal, but deeply satisfying, the perfect fuel for the rest of the day. The afternoon brings a change of pace as you join a group heading upstream to gather papyrus. These tall, reed-like plants grow abundantly along the riverbanks, their triangular stalks swaying gently in the breeze. Papyrus is a cornerstone of Egyptian industry, used for everything from writing material to rope and even small boats. Harvesting papyrus is a meticulous process. You wade into the shallow water, careful not to disturb the small fish, darting around your legs, and use a sharp knife to cut the stalks near their base. The fresh-cut papyrus has a distinct grassy smell, and its pale green color glimmers in the sunlight. Bundles are tied together and loaded onto waiting boats, ready to be transported back to the village for processing. On the return journey, you take a moment to reflect on the significance of the Nile. It's easy to see why it's considered a divine gift, a lifeline that sustains every aspect of life. The river doesn't just provide water and fertile soil, it's a highway for trade, a source of inspiration for art and religion, and a unifying force that connects communities up and down its length. As the sun begins to dip toward the horizon, you arrive back at the docks where the day's activity is winding down. Traders pack up their goods boats are secured for the night, and workers head home, their faces tired but content. The river too seems to settle into a quieter rhythm, its surface reflecting the soft hues of the setting sun. At home, you share stories of the day's events over a simple dinner of barley porridge and roasted vegetables. The glow of the oil lamp casts a warm light on the faces of your family, and there's a sense of gratitude for the river that provides so much. Before bed, you step outside to gaze at the stars. The sky is clear, and the constellations seem to dance above the dark ribbon of the Nile. It's a humbling sight, a reminder of your place in the grand tapestry of life. The river flows on, eternal and unchanging, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of generations past, present, and future. As you lie down to sleep, the distant sound of water lapping against the shore lulls you into a peaceful slumber. The Nile continues its journey, a silent witness to the stories of an ancient land. The rhythm of your days in ancient Egypt is often marked by the cycles of work, rest, and communal life. But today's focus shifts toward a fascinating aspect of Egyptian society: its bustling towns and cities. These urban hubs are worlds unto themselves, brimming with activity, diversity, and the occasional intrigue. You find yourself walking along the main thoroughfare of a mid-sized town. The streets are narrow and winding, lined with mud brick houses that seem to rise haphazardly like a jumble of cubist blocks. Each home has a distinct character. Some are modest and single-story, while others feature upper levels accessed by external staircases. The walls are plastered and often whitewashed, giving the street a bright, welcoming feel, despite the dust kicked up by the feet of passers-by. The air hums with energy as shopkeepers call out their wares. You pass a baker's stall where freshly baked bread is stacked high on woven mats. The smell of wheat and honey wafts through the air, mingling with the earthy aroma of clay pots being fired in a nearby kiln. Vendors sell everything from dates and figs to intricately woven baskets and finely made sandals. The people in the streets reflect a mosaic of Egyptian life. Laborers in simple kilts carry heavy loads on their shoulders, while wealthier citizens stroll leisurely, their garments finer and their jewelry catching the sunlight. Children dart between the adults, their laughter a lively counterpoint to the chatter of trade. One of the most striking features of the town is its central marketplace, or souk. Here the bustling energy reaches a crescendo. Merchants haggle animatedly over prices their hands, gesturing wildly in a display as theatrical as it is practical. A spice seller offers a dazzling array of good cinnamon cloves and cardamom, all displayed in small ceramic bowls. The colors are as vibrant as the scents are intoxicating. At another stall, a jeweler showcases delicate pieces crafted from gold and turquoise, the latter prized for its luminous blue-green hue. Customers carefully examine rings, necklaces, and amulets, their purchases often dictated by both fashion and superstition. Amulets are especially popular, believed to protect the wearer from harm or to bring good fortune. As you wander further, you encounter a scribe seated under a shaded awning. His reed stylus moves with practiced precision over a piece of papyrus, crafting a legal document for a client. Scribes are among the most respected professionals in Egyptian society, their literacy granting them a near mystical status. Today, the scribe is drafting a marriage contract, a reminder that every facet of life, even love, is meticulously recorded and governed by custom. Beyond the marketplace lies the heart of the town's governance, the local serdab, or administrative building. Here, officials oversee the collection of taxes and the resolution of disputes. Taxes, often paid in grain or livestock, are meticulously tracked with records stored in the form of papyrus scrolls. The officials are stern but fair, their work ensuring that the community runs smoothly. Religion, of course, is never far from daily life. You pass by a modest temple dedicated to Hathor, the goddess of love, music, and joy. The temple is small but beautifully adorned, its walls carved with scenes of offerings and rituals. Priests and priestesses move gracefully through the courtyard, their white linen robes pristine. You notice a group of townspeople leaving offerings of bread, beer, and flowers, their prayers murmured in hushed tones. Moving away from the religious center, you find yourself in the residential quarter. The homes here are modest but functional, built from sun-dried mud bricks and featuring flat roofs where families often sleep during the hotter months. The interiors are sparsely furnished with low tables, woven mats, and clay storage jars. Yet there's a warmth to these homes, a sense of life being lived fully within their walls. Inside one home, a woman grinds grain on a stone quern, her movements rhythmic and steady. Nearby, a child plays with a simple toy, a wooden crocodile with a hinged jaw. The scene is both timeless and poignant, a reminder that some aspects of human life remain unchanged across millennia. As the day wears on, you make your way to the outskirts of town where artisans are hard at work. A potter shapes clay on a foot-powered wheel, his hands deftly coaxing the material into a graceful vase. A carpenter chisels intricate designs into a wooden chest, his tools worn but effective. These craftspeople are the backbone of the community, their skills ensuring that daily life is not only functional but beautiful. Just beyond the artisan quarter lies the town's edge, where the landscape opens up to fields and pastures. Here, farmers tend to their crops and herders watch over flocks of goats and sheep. The contrast between the vibrant town and the serene countryside is striking, a reminder of the delicate balance that sustains Egyptian life. As the sun begins to set, the town transitions into a quieter rhythm. the marketplace empties and families gather for their evening meals. You're invited into one home where the meal is simple but satisfying: lentils, bread, and a stew flavored with garlic and onions. The conversation is lively, touching on everything from the day's events to the latest gossip about a neighbor's upcoming marriage. After dinner, the family gathers on the rooftop to enjoy the cool evening air. The stars begin to emerge, their brilliance unmarred by modern light pollution. Someone begins to sing a soft, lilting melody, the tune weaving through the night like a thread of silver. It's a moment of peace, a reminder that even amid the hustle and challenges of daily life, there is always room for connection and joy. As you lie down to sleep, the sounds of the town fade into the background, the occasional bark of a dog, the distant laugh of a child, the faint murmur of the Nile. The town, like its people, rests in preparation for another day of labor, trade, and life. The Nile is the lifeblood of Egypt, and as dawn breaks, you find yourself drawn to its banks, where the river pulses with a quiet, ceaseless energy. It's here along the fertile floodplain that daily life flows most vividly, a blend of survival ritual and the simple pleasures of water and light. You step down the worn path to the river's edge, where fishermen already cast their nets into the slow-moving current. Their boats are small, made from bundled papyrus reeds, and bob gently with the water's rhythm. The men chant softly as they work, their voices blending with the splash of oars and the occasional cry of a waterbird. The Nile's waters are rich with life. Fish like tilapia and catfish dart beneath the surface, their scales glinting in the morning sun. You watch as a fisherman hauls in a hefty catch, deftly removing the wriggling creatures and placing them into woven baskets. These fish will feed families today and provide goods for trade tomorrow. Nearby, women gather to wash clothes and fetch water. Their movements are practiced and efficient, dipping large clay jars into the river, balancing them expertly on their heads. The water here is the town's source of drinking, cooking, and cleaning, and its purity is essential. You notice some of the women wearing beads of faience and amulets shaped like the eye of Horus, believed to protect against disease carried by water or air. The riverbanks are lush with reeds and papyrus, tall and waving gently in the breeze. Children play among the vegetation, chasing dragonflies and trying their hand at building tiny boats from reed stalks. It's a scene of innocence and joy, a sharp contrast to the harshness that often marks life elsewhere. The Nile's annual flood, called the inundation, is the pulse that sustains this world. When the floodwaters rise, they deposit a rich layer of silt across the land, fertilizing the fields and ensuring a bountiful harvest. You recall how farmers anticipate this event with reverence and careful preparation, knowing that the land's fertility depends on this watery gift. As the river swells with the coming flood, communities come together to manage the water's flow through canals and dikes. These irrigation systems are marvels of ancient engineering, painstakingly maintained by skilled laborers and overseen by local officials. You imagine the cooperation and planning it takes a reminder that survival here depends on shared effort as much as individual toil. Boats of varying sizes glide along the Nile's surface, their sails catching the breeze. Some are merchant vessels laden with goods, grain, textiles, pottery heading toward distant markets. Others carry pilgrims making their way to sacred sites along the river, their journey as much spiritual as physical. One such pilgrim pauses nearby, his face weathered but serene. He wears a simple linen robe and carries a staff topped with an ankh, the symbol of life. You sense the weight of faith in his eyes, the hope that the gods will watch over him on this voyage. Religion and daily life are entwined here, inseparable like the river and its banks. The river is also a source of entertainment and leisure. Families picnic along the shore, sharing breadfruit and beer brewed from barley. Children splash in the shallows, their laughter carrying across the water. Musicians play simple instruments, harps, flutes, and percussion filling the air with melody. You can almost feel the warmth of the sun on your skin and the cool splash of the Nile against your ankles. But the Nile can also be dangerous. You spot a fisherman carefully avoiding a patch of floating weeds rumored to conceal crocodiles, powerful ancient creatures both feared and respected. Crocodile imagery is everywhere, from amulets meant to ward off harm to stories of Sobek, the crocodile god who both protected and threatened. You remember the quirky tidbit about how some Egyptians believed crocodile dung was used as sunscreen? Probably not the safest of beauty tips. Disease is never far from the mind here. The proximity to water means a higher risk of illnesses like bilharzia, caused by parasitic worms living in the river. You think about the scholars who still debate how much waterborne diseases impacted Egyptian health compared to other environmental factors. It's a reminder that even paradise can hold unseen dangers. As the sun climbs higher, the river's surface shimmers like a vast mirror. You notice fishermen tying nets, women adjusting their jars, children chasing each other among the reeds, all part of the timeless dance between humanity and nature along the Nile. Toward midday, you're drawn to a small temple nestled near the riverbank, dedicated to Hospi, the god of the Nile and its floods. The temple is modest but richly decorated with reliefs depicting scenes of the river's generosity. Priests offer libations and prayers, hoping to ensure the flood arrives on time and nourishes the fields. You see people leaving offerings of bread, beer, and lotus flowers, each act a plea for life and renewal. Nearby, a scribe records the water levels, an essential duty that guides the community's agricultural planning. The precision of their observations fascinates you, as does the way such practical tasks are woven seamlessly into religious devotion. As afternoon wanes, the river's pace slows and the town's rhythm shifts again. Fishermen repair nets, women prepare meals, and traders unload goods from boats. You imagine the conversations happening here, stories passed from one generation to the next, jokes exchanged over shared cups of beer, prayers whispered beneath the shade of date palms. One such story catches your attention, a local tale about a mysterious creature living deep in the river, half fish, half man, who protects the waters and punishes those who disrespect the Nile. This blend of myth and reality is a hallmark of Egyptian culture, where the divine and the mundane coexist in daily life. You settle on the riverbank to watch the sun set its golden light, painting the sky and reflecting off the water in shimmering streaks. The call of a nightbird echoes softly, and the gentle lap of water against the shore lulls you into a calm reverie. As darkness falls, oil lamps flicker in homes along the river, casting warm glows that dance on the walls. The Nile, ever present and eternal, flows steadily into the night, carrying with it the hopes, fears, and dreams of all who live beside it. You wake to the soft, muffled sounds of dawn spilling through your window, a mix of birdsong and distant voices already carrying the day's urgency. Today, like most days in ancient Egypt, begins with the promise of hard work, but also the comfort of routine where community and craft come alive. Your destination. The bustling market, the heart of social life, commerce, and gossip, where the aroma of spices mingles with the sharp tang of fresh fish and the earthy scent of woven mats. As you step into the crowded streets, you notice the colorful bustle of traders, artisans, and farmers all converging in a chaotic, yet harmonious tapestry of commerce. Men and women display their wares with pride baskets brimming with dates and figs, bolts of finely woven linen, dyed in deep indigo, and saffron pottery glazed with geometric patterns, and glistening fish freshly pulled from the Nile. The market feels like a living organism pulsing with life, noise, and purpose. You weave through the crowd, greeted by familiar faces. Some greet you with friendly nods. Others try to catch your attention, offering samples of honey or pomegranates. You hear the calls of vendors advertising their goods in melodic chants, a market soundtrack that has probably echoed through generations. The scent of cumin and coriander hangs in the air, mingling with the occasional waft of incense burned to ward off evil spirits and bring good fortune to the day's dealings. Among the stalls, craftsmen display their skills, potters shaping clay with practiced hands, leatherworkers stitching sandals from soft tanned hides, and scribes offering their services to those needing letters or documents. You spot a scribe sitting beneath a cloth awning, his reed pen scratching on papyrus as he carefully copies a list of goods. Literacy is rare here, a valuable skill that sets scribes apart as crucial members of society. You recall the quirky tidbit that some scribes practiced a form of shorthand, centuries before anyone else did, basically the ancient equivalent of speed texting. As you move deeper into the market, you notice a troupe of musicians performing near the well. Their instruments, harps, flutes, and small drums create a lively background score encouraging children to dance and elders to tap their feet. The market isn't just about trade, it's where stories are shared, alliances formed, and news from far-off regions arrives on the lips of traveling merchants. You approach a stall selling textiles where bolts of fabric dyed with vibrant blues, rich reds, and muted greens are displayed like jewels. The dyers take great pride in their craft, using natural ingredients like indigo plants and madder root, a labor-intensive process that yields stunning colors. The deep indigo hue was often reserved for the elite, while russet and saffron adorned everyday clothing. You think about how color signified status as much as style did, and how the choice of garment might silently communicate your place in this intricate social web. Nearby, a merchant unpacks pottery decorated with scenes from daily life, farmers tilling fields, fishermen hauling nets, children playing games, all carefully painted in fine detail. These vessels are not just containers. They are stories frozen in clay, snapshots of Egyptian life meant to be cherished or traded far beyond the market. You catch sight of an intriguing figure, a woman with a basket of herbs and flowers offering sachets meant to protect against illness and evil spirits. The tradition of herbal medicine here blends empirical knowledge with spiritual belief. Some herbs like garlic and coriander were believed to cleanse the body, while others, such as frankincense and myrrh, had sacred significance and were used in religious ceremonies. The dual nature of these remedies, both physical and metaphysical, is a reminder of how intertwined science and superstition remain in daily life. The market also reflects Egypt's place in a broader world. You overhear traders speaking of distant lands, Nubia to the south, the Levant to the northeast, and even faraway lands like Punt, famed for its exotic goods like incense and ebony. Trade routes both overland and by river knit together these diverse cultures, exchanging not only goods but ideas and beliefs. You remember how historians still argue about how much foreign influence shaped Egyptian art and religion, during this period a constant dance between tradition and innovation. You pause by a stall selling copper tools and weapons glinting under the sun. The quality of metalwork impresses you, a result of skilled metallurgy developed over centuries. The use of bronze and copper had transformed farming and warfare, making daily tasks more efficient and battles more deadly. Interestingly, you recall the fringe theory that some tools might have been deliberately made imperfect to preserve trade monopolies, like ancient planned obsolescence, if you will. As midday approaches, the market's rhythm changes slightly. More officials and scribes arrive, attending to tax collection and record keeping. You notice the distinctive robes of temple officials moving purposefully through the crowd, reminding you how intertwined religious authority and civic governance are. The temple is not only a spiritual center, but also a hub of economic power. At a corner stall, you observe the exchange of papyrus scrolls, scrolls containing poetry, wisdom texts, and official decrees. Literacy may be limited, but the written word here carries immense weight. You recall a quirky detail: some Egyptians believed that writing itself was a magical act, a gift from the god Thoth, who was said to have invented hieroglyphs and guarded the secrets of knowledge. Just as you're about to leave the market, a sudden shout draws your attention. A group of children are chasing after a runaway chicken, the bird darting under stalls and causing a small commotion. The sight makes you smile, a reminder that even in a world governed by survival and faith, there's room for simple mischief and laughter. As you retrace your steps toward home, the market fades behind you, but its sensory imprint lingers. The colors, sounds, and smells merging into a vivid portrait of daily life. This vibrant center of trade and culture pulses with the lifeblood of the community, where every exchange, every story, and every smile stitches together the fabric of ancient Egyptian society. You find yourself walking along the banks of the Nile, the lifeblood of Egypt flowing steady and sure beneath a sky streaked with soft morning light. The river's surface glimmers like molten lapis lazuli, and the air hums with the quiet rhythm of boats pushing through the water and fishermen casting their nets. Life here revolves around this great artery, a constant presence shaping everything from the food on your table to the cycle of the seasons. Your feet sink slightly into the fertile silt of the floodplain, rich with nutrients deposited by last year's inundation. This annual flood is the heartbeat of Egyptian agriculture, a natural miracle that transforms barren land into a lush patchwork of fields. Farmers work in the distance, their lean bodies silhouetted against rows of green barley and wheat, sprouting in neat lines ready to feed a nation. You move closer and spot a group of laborers at work on the canals and dikes, tending the irrigation systems that control the floodwaters. The engineering here is remarkable, simple but effective. These canals distribute life-giving water to fields far from the river's edge. The workers wield wooden shovels and stone tools, chipping and clearing debris under the hot sun. It's exhausting labor, but necessary to keep the land fertile and the granaries full. You pause to watch a man skillfully carving a small statue of the Nile god, Hapi, from a piece of limestone. Hapi, with his portly belly and joyful expression, symbolizes the river's generosity. Farmers and commoners alike revere him, believing his blessings ensure a bountiful flood and prosperous harvest. You recall a quirky bit you heard once: some farmers even left offerings of bread and beer at the riverbank, hoping to appease Hapi and secure his favor. Whether it worked or was just superstition, it underscores how spirituality and survival were inseparable. Nearby women gather at the water's edge, washing clothes and filling clay jars with fresh river water. Their dresses flutter in the breeze, dyed in soft hues of teal and russet, and their laughter rings out like delicate chimes. They carry wooden paddles and woven baskets, essential tools for their daily chores. You notice one woman smoothing her skin with a paste made of crocodile dung, an odd beauty treatment that sounds more like a dare than a ritual, but was believed to protect against the harsh sun. You wonder if this was the origin of the phrase "beauty is pain" in some forgotten dialect. Further along, a fisherman hauls in a net heavy with tilapia, the Nile's most common fish. He grins broadly, proud of today's catch, which will be sold in the nearby market or grilled over a simple fire at home. Fish were a staple of the Egyptian diet, especially for those who couldn't afford much meat. You think about how the Nile fed not just bodies, but the entire economy, connecting villages and cities along its course. As you wander, you notice the occasional papyrus reed growing thick at the water's edge, tall and graceful, their feathery tops swaying like banners in the wind. Papyrus was vital to Egyptian life, used for making paper-like sheets to write on, mats to sit on, and even boats to float on the water. The process of harvesting and weaving papyrus was an ancient craft passed down through generations. You recall hearing that some scribes were so skilled at writing on papyrus they could produce texts so beautiful they were treasured as art. You spot a small wooden boat drifting slowly, guided by an elderly man whose weathered hands hold a single oar. He hums a low tune, perhaps a song about the river's gifts, or a tale of ancient gods. Boats like his were essential for transport and trade, gliding silently along the waterways to ferry goods and people. The design is simple but effective, crafted from acacia wood and sealed with resin to keep out the water. You remember reading that some of these boats were decorated with bright paint and even gilded details to honor the gods or demonstrate wealth. The boatman's quiet song blends with the gentle lap of water against the hull, a soothing lullaby to the river's endless flow. Nearby, you see a cluster of children playing by the shore, their laughter echoing over the water. They toss small stones and chase each other in games that have likely been played for centuries. Their carefree joy contrasts with the adult world's weightier concerns of crops and survival. You wonder if, like you, they sometimes imagine the river as a mysterious giant, full of secrets and stories from times long past. As the sun climbs higher, the heat becomes palpable. You wipe the sweat from your brow and settle beneath the shade of a palm tree. Its long fronds rustle gently, casting flickering shadows on the ground. Palms were treasured not only for their fruit, but also for their wood and leaves used in building and crafting everyday items. From your vantage point, you watch a group of farmers guiding oxen pulling a wooden plow through the soft earth. The plow is simple but ingenious, turning the soil to prepare for planting. Oxen were crucial for this work, their strength and endurance unmatched by human labor alone. You recall the open debate among historians about how much the introduction of the plow changed agricultural productivity. Did it spark an ancient revolution? Or was it just one step in a long, slow evolution? Nearby, a small temple dedicated to the goddess Isis rises modestly from the fields. Peasants stop to offer prayers, lighting small fires of incense and leaving simple offerings of bread and beer. Isis, protector of fertility and magic, was deeply loved by those who depended on the land. Her myths spoke of resurrection and hope, themes that resonated strongly in a world where survival was never guaranteed. You think about how religion permeated every aspect of life here. The gods were not distant figures, but active participants in the world, invoked for protection, health, and prosperity. Even a simple farmer's day was shaped by rituals and prayers, a constant dialogue between humans and the divine. As the afternoon shadows lengthen, you decide to follow a small path leading away from the river into the village itself. The houses here are modest, made from mud bricks, sun-dried to a warm ochre hue. Flat roofs provide spaces for drying grain or catching the evening breeze. You catch the scent of cooking fire stews simmering over open flames seasoned with garlic and coriander. You pass a group of women weaving baskets from reeds, their hands quick and practiced. These baskets hold everything from food to tools, and were indispensable in daily life. Nearby, a man sharpens a sickle with a whetstone, preparing for the next day's work in the fields. Simple scenes, but each full of purpose and meaning. You overhear an elder recounting a tale about a comet that once streaked across the sky, seen as a dire omen by many. Such celestial phenomena often sparked fear and speculation, fueling the apocalyptic anxieties that flared during times of hardship. You remember the scholarly debate over whether these beliefs genuinely influenced political decisions or were mostly popular superstitions. As dusk settles, you return to the riverbank, the water now a dark ribbon reflecting the fiery colors of sunset. You watch as fishermen ready their nets for the night's catch lanterns, flickering like fireflies on the water. The village quiets, the market stalls close, and a gentle calm falls over the land. You sit on a worn stone, feeling the pulse of the Nile beneath your feet and the weight of centuries pressing softly around you. This river, this land, and these people all woven into a timeless story of survival, faith, and resilience. As night deepens, you breathe in the cool air, the scent of papyrus and earth grounding you in a world both ancient and alive. You wake to the faint glow of dawn filtering through the reed mat curtains of a simple mud brick house. The air is cool but promises the familiar heat of the Egyptian sun as it climbs higher. Today you step into the bustling heart of the village to see how trade and commerce shape everyday life. Because no matter how close you live to the Nile's nurturing waters, you quickly realize that ancient Egypt's towns thrive on exchange and connection. The village market unfolds like a living tapestry before you, vibrant with color and noise. Stalls shaded by linen awnings display wares from the farthest reaches of Egypt and beyond. You hear the chatter of traders negotiating prices, their voices a mix of booming calls and quick haggles like a medieval podcast in a language you almost understand. Hear the scents of fresh bread, dried figs, and fragrant spices mingle, teasing your senses and hinting at the variety of foods that fuel this civilization. Traders from distant lands stroll alongside local farmers, their camels laden with exotic goods. You catch glimpses of lapis lazuli glinting blue as bright as the sky, and copper tools hammered to perfection by skilled smiths. The market isn't just about food or goods. It's where news and gossip travel as quickly as the goods themselves, sometimes more so. You recall that historians still argue whether Egypt's trade networks were purely economic, or if they also served as conduits for cultural exchange, helping spread ideas, technologies, and even religions. You stop by a stall piled high with pottery jugs, bowls, and storage jars painted in indigo and russet hues. A potter, his hands stained with clay, shapes a new piece on his wheel, his fingers moving with practiced grace. You wonder if the ancient Egyptians were the original makers before that term became trendy on social media. Nearby, a woman offers fragrant bundles of herbs-thyme coriander and cumin, each carefully tied with a strip of papyrus. Herbal medicine here is a blend of practical knowledge and ritual magic. You hear whispers that some herbs were believed to ward off evil spirits or bring good luck, revealing a fascinating mix of science and superstition. You wander past a butcher's stand, where cuts of lamb and goat hang glistening in the morning sun. Meat wasn't eaten daily by everyone, mostly reserved for festivals or wealthier households. But the smell reminds you how varied the diet could be. Fish from the Nile, bread from the fields, vegetables from small garden plots, and fruit all made up the staples, while meat was a prized treat. A group of children dart between stalls, chasing each other with infectious laughter. Their clothes are simple linen tunics and some sport necklaces made from beads of turquoise or carnelian. Jewelry wasn't just decoration here, it was believed to have protective powers. You remember a quirky tidbit: some children wore amulets shaped like scarabs, the sacred beetle symbolizing rebirth and protection. You suspect these ancient good luck charms were the forerunners of today's obsession with lucky sneakers. A few steps ahead, a scribe sits cross-legged on a low stool, his reed pen poised over a papyrus scroll. The meticulous script glistens with shell gold, illuminating the words in delicate strokes. Literacy was rare, reserved for scribes and priests who were the keepers of knowledge, law, and history. You think about the irony that while scribes held immense power through their words, most people in the village lived lives ruled by manual labor and tradition. You overhear a trader from Nubia discussing the price of ebony wood, coveted for its dark beauty and durability. Trade routes stretched far beyond the Nile, connecting Egypt with lands rich in precious stones, incense, and metals. You pause to marvel at the sheer complexity of these ancient networks established long before modern infrastructure. The market also serves as a stage for entertainment. Musicians strum lyres and percussion instruments, their melodies weaving through the air like silk threads. Dancers perform energetic routines, their colorful skirts swirling as they tell stories of gods and heroes. This lively atmosphere provides relief from the hard realities of daily toil. You watch as a woman sells woven mats and baskets, made from papyrus reeds, their patterns intricate and pleasing to the eye. These crafts are essential for everyday life, from carrying goods to creating comfortable homes. You recall that many such crafts were traditionally done by women whose work kept the household running smoothly. This reminds you of the scholarly debate about women's social status in ancient Egypt. While some evidence shows they held significant rights, others suggest their roles were still constrained by patriarchal norms. Nearby, a man sharpens a copper blade on a stone wheel, sparks flying like tiny stars. Metalworking was a highly respected skill, and copper tools replaced their stone predecessors to great effect. You think about how technological advances here were slow but transformative, a step-by-step upgrade to make life just a little easier and safer. You spot a small shrine in a corner of the market dedicated to Bes, the protective dwarf god of households and childbirth. People pause to offer a pinch of incense or a small loaf of bread, hoping for his favor and protection. Bes was a favorite among common folk, his jovial and sometimes comical image a stark contrast to the solemn gods worshipped in grand temples. The sun climbs higher now, and you're struck by how much this market, with its noisy crowds and bustling activity, contrasts with the quiet serenity of the Nile's banks you visited earlier. Yet both places are woven tightly into the fabric of Egyptian life, each essential to survival and community. As you prepare to leave, you notice a group of merchants loading goods onto donkeys and carts, ready to travel to the next town or city. The exchange of goods you witness today is part of a vast system that connects people across great distances, binding their fates together. You can't help but think that despite the hardships, floods, droughts, or political upheaval, these markets stand as a testament to human resilience and ingenuity. Life in ancient Egypt might seem distant, but its pulse beats strongly in the simple acts of buying, selling, sharing, and celebrating. You wake early to the scent of the Nile mingling with the earthiness of morning dew, ready to witness the rituals that tie daily life to the divine. Today you find yourself drawn to the village temple, a modest yet sacred space where the pulse of religion beats steadily through the hearts of the people. In ancient Egypt, the gods weren't distant figures locked away in grand temples. They were close companions woven deeply into the rhythm of every day, from the farmer's plow to the potter's wheel. As you approach, the temple walls rise sun-warmed and adorned with faded but still vivid paintings of gods and pharaohs, their colors dulled by time but not their significance. The temple may be smaller than the colossal ones in Thebes or Karnak, but it is no less vital. Inside, a flicker of flickering oil lamps casts golden light on the polished stone altar. The smell of incense curls around you, frankincense and myrrh scents that ancient Egyptians believed invited the gods to linger close. A priest clad in a crisp white linen robe carefully tends to the altar. His shaved head gleams under the soft light, and a broad collar of lapis lazuli and gold beads catches every flicker of flame. The priests aren't just religious functionaries, they are the keepers of cosmic order, responsible for rituals that ensure the sun rises, the Nile floods, and life continues. You watch as he pours water from a clay vessel onto the altar, a symbolic purification act called the washing of the god's statue. Nearby, a young acolyte carries a bowl of sacred oils, offering them reverently. as the priest chants prayers in a sing-song voice that seems to float between earth and sky. The temple's sacred hieroglyphs gleam softly in shell gold, their delicate outlines telling stories of creation justice and divine protection. It's striking how religion permeates even the smallest acts. You notice a woman at the temple's edge gently placing bread and beer on a stone slab, a humble offering for Hathor, goddess of joy and fertility. These offerings aren't just superstition. They form a contract between mortals and gods, a daily negotiation to keep chaos at bay. You think about how historians still argue whether this religious devotion primarily reinforced social hierarchies or truly reflected genuine personal faith. Outside, musicians strike small hand drums and castanets, their rhythm echoing through the courtyard, calling worshippers to participate. The entire village seems to pulse with this shared faith, even children joining in with innocent smiles, their tiny hands clapping in time. It's a reminder that ancient Egyptian religion was as much communal celebration as solemn ritual. You pause to take in the subtle details, the finely woven linen garments, the small amulets hung around necks, scarabs, the Ankh and the Eye of Horus, each serving as a talisman against misfortune. A quirky tidbit catches your ear. Some Egyptians believed that even cats had divine protection because they were sacred to Bastet, goddess of home and hearth. That explains the pampered cats lounging lazily on temple steps, their presence a living link to the divine. As the morning ritual concludes, the priest blesses the gathered crowd, sprinkling water with a palm frond, a gesture believed to bring health and prosperity. The crowd disperses slowly, their faces serene, yet focused, ready to carry the blessings into their daily toil. Nearby, a scribe diligently records the day's offerings and ritual details on a papyrus scroll, his reed pen tracing elegant lines of hieratic script. Literacy may be rare, but scribes play a crucial role in maintaining religious order and passing down knowledge. You wonder if the scribes ever felt the weight of their responsibility, knowing their words helped hold the cosmos in balance. You catch a glimpse of a festival and preparation banners made from dyed cloth flutter above the temple gate, their colors bright in saffron and teal. Festivals were the heartbeats of religious life occasions where music, dance, and feasting brought the community together in joyous tribute to the gods. And yet, amidst the revelry, you detect the underlying seriousness, a reminder that without the gods' favor, all life could wither away. Walking away from the temple, you reflect on the incredible interweaving of faith and everyday existence. In Egypt, religion was not a separate part of life, but the very thread that stitched everything together. Agriculture, politics, family health, and even entertainment. You think about the power of this worldview to comfort and control. The gods explained the mysteries of the universe, offered hope in times of hardship, and justified the social order. But you also glimpse cracks in the system, debates about whether the religious establishment empowered the rulers too much, or if it provided the common people with a genuine sense of meaning in a world often harsh and unpredictable. Later, you find yourself in a quiet corner of the village where a small group of women gather to weave baskets and chant prayers to Tawere, the hippo goddess of childbirth and fertility. Their voices rise and fall in a soothing rhythm, blending with the rustle of papyrus reeds. You smile at the thought that these everyday rituals, so intimate and unassuming, were just as important to the spiritual health of the community as the grand temple ceremonies. The sun climbs higher now, casting long shadows and warming the temple's stone steps, where the cats stretch and yawn, truly living gods in their own right. You realize that for the ancient Egyptians, the divine was never far, always near enough to touch, to smell, to hear. Their gods walked beside them through the dust and heat, their blessings as vital as the river's floodwaters. As you leave the temple behind, you carry with you the feeling that life here was a delicate balance of faith, fear, hope, and celebration. A world where gods shaped every moment, where even the smallest act of offering could ripple out into cosmic harmony. You wake with the sun low on the horizon, the sky painted in soft pinks and oranges, and you find yourself wandering towards the bustling heart of the village, the marketplace. It's a scene alive with color, sound, and the sense of earth and spice, a lively crossroads where daily life plays out in full spectacle. The marketplace isn't just about trading goods, it's the social hub, a place where stories are exchanged, alliances forged, and gossip flutters like the brightly dyed fabrics draped across wooden stalls. You step past stalls, stacked with bundles of fresh onions, garlic, and pungent herbs. The vendors call out their voices, weaving over one another in a melodic cacophony, advertising everything from fragrant frankincense to sturdy woven sandals. You pause to watch a pair of children chase a goat, their laughter mingling with the cries of merchants hawking their wares. It strikes you how even in this ancient world, the marketplace has the same essential energy as a modern-day bazaar or farmer's market, full of life unpredictability and tiny dramas unfolding everywhere. As you navigate the crowd, you notice the array of traders, local farmers with wicker baskets overflowing with dates and figs, potters offering brightly glazed jars, and fishermen proudly displaying their catch of the day fresh from the Nile's embrace. The market thrives on barter and coin, but it's also an exchange of culture and ideas, a melting pot on the banks of the river. This daily ritual of commerce is critical to the village's survival, knitting together farmers, artisans, and traders in a web of mutual dependence. One intriguing tidbit pops into your mind. Did you know some Egyptian traders used small clay tokens or bullae to represent goods before coins became widespread? It's like the world's first IOUs. This ancient system points to the clever ways early economies functioned without the convenience of modern currency. Amidst the bustle, a colorful man with a painted face draws your attention. He's a storyteller standing on a low wooden platform, performing tales of gods and heroes with exaggerated gestures. His voice rises and falls like the Nile in flood, mesmerizing a crowd that hangs on every word. Storytelling was more than entertainment. It was how history, religion, and social values were passed down long before written texts filled dusty libraries. You realize the marketplace is a living classroom where wisdom travels alongside wares. Nearby, you spy a merchant selling medicinal herbs and potions in small alabaster jars. A quick breath of the aromatic blends mint thyme, and something sharper reminds you how ancient Egyptians were pioneers of medicine. They combined practical remedies with spiritual healing, often invoking Thoth, the god of wisdom, to bless their cures. But here's a quirky fact. Some remedies involved ingredients like crocodile dung or honey mixed with natron, which might sound disgusting today, but were believed effective back then. Historians still argue whether these ancient medicines actually worked or were largely placebo with spiritual backing. You move toward a quieter corner where artisans demonstrate their craft. A potter's hands spin clay on a wheel, shaping bowls with deliberate precision. Nearby, a jeweler painstakingly sets turquoise and carnelian stones into delicate gold collars, the gleam of precious metals reflecting the warm sunlight. These craftspeople are the heartbeat of the village economy, creating objects both practical and beautiful. Their work is a blend of artistry and survival. You notice a man carving hieroglyphs onto a small limestone tablet, his movements careful and practiced. Writing was a rare skill, held by scribes who shaped history itself, but even simple inscriptions could be found in markets to mark ownership or prayers. This reminds you of how writing wasn't just for the pharaohs or priests. It seeped into everyday life, slowly spreading knowledge and administration. The marketplace also echoes with sounds of animals. Pigeons coo softly from their perches. Donkeys bray as they carry loads of grain and camels. The ships of the desert kneel patiently while merchants negotiate. Each creature has its role in this thriving ecosystem, integral to trade and transport. You smile at the idea that while camels are now iconic symbols of desert travel, their introduction to Egypt was a relatively recent event, showing how trade routes connected far beyond the Nile. Food stalls offer tempting aromas. Freshly baked flatbreads, roasted fava beans, and stewed lentils simmering in earthen pots. You decide to try a small piece of honey-sweetened date cake, a favorite treat for locals and travelers alike. The blend of sweetness with the subtle bitterness of crushed sesame seeds is surprisingly delightful. Eating here is a reminder that food was both sustenance and a symbol of community and celebration. You overhear a conversation about taxes, a reminder that the state's presence reaches even this vibrant hub. Farmers and traders alike pay a portion of their goods to officials representing the pharaoh's government. It's an ancient system of governance and control, one that historians still debate did the taxation help maintain order and infrastructure? Or was it a heavy burden that deepened inequality? Suddenly, the marketplace's tone shifts as a band of traveling musicians arrives, their lyres and flutes filling the air with lilting melodies. People gather clapping and dancing, their spirits lifted by the music, despite the ever-present hardships of life. You realize that even in ancient Egypt, joy was never far away, flourishing like the Nile's green banks amid the arid desert. As the sun climbs higher, you step back and take it all in the rich tapestry of life, woven by the marketplace's many threads. You think about how this vibrant scene repeats itself across the ancient world, a reminder that human nature hasn't changed much. People seek connection, survival, and joy no matter the millennium. Before you leave, a child runs up clutching a small wooden figurine, carved in the shape of a cat, an offering to Bastet, guardian of home and family. You tuck the tiny sculpture into your pocket, a reminder that even in the busiest moments, faith and hope are quietly held close. The marketplace fades behind you as you wander back toward the river's edge, your mind full of colors, scents, and stories. Life in ancient Egypt is a complex dance of survival and celebration, shaped by trade tradition and a deep connection to the land and gods. You carry these images with you, a vivid snapshot of a world where every moment hums with possibility and promise. You find yourself drawn away from the crowded marketplace toward the cool shade of the temple precinct. The massive stone columns rise like ancient trees, their surfaces carved with intricate scenes of gods and kings. Walking beneath them, you feel the weight of centuries settle gently around you, as if the very air hums with sacred energy. The temple is more than a religious site. It's a center of power learning and community life. Priests move quietly through the courtyards, their linen robes rustling softly, preparing for the day's rituals. You pass a group of acolytes practicing chants in the high, clear voices that seem to reach the heavens. Their words invoke the sun god Ra, a figure who dominates Egyptian spirituality, believed to rise daily and renew the world. You might be surprised to learn that the daily temple rituals were not just about worship, but also economic engines. Temples owned vast lands, managed grain stores, and employed thousands. They were major players in the ancient economy, not unlike modern corporations. Near the temple's entrance, a priestess tends to a small garden, where papyrus lotus flowers and medicinal herbs grow in neat beds. This sacred garden offers ingredients for healing and ritual. You breathe in the scent of lotus, the ancient symbol of rebirth and purity, and you can't help but feel a whisper of the spiritual symbolism that colored every aspect of life here. The Egyptians believed plants weren't just practical, but also bridges to the divine. Nearby, you observe scribes recording offerings on papyrus scrolls, their reed brushes dipping gracefully into black and red ink. The precision of their handwriting reveals years of training. The craft of a scribe was one of the few respected professions open beyond royalty and priests. You remember that one quirky tidbit some scribes used a type of early eraser made from breadcrumbs to correct mistakes, a humble touch of humanity in this grand, solemn place. As you wander deeper, you hear the low murmur of prayers mixing with the clinking of ritual vessels, golden bowls, alabaster jars filled with scented oils and burning incense. The air thickens with myrrh and frankincense substances that seemed magical to you now, but were treasured commodities then. They weren't just fragrant, they symbolized divine presence and protection. Historians still argue whether the incense was mainly spiritual, or if it also helped mask less pleasant odors in the crowded temples. In the inner sanctum, you glimpse a statue of Osiris, god of the afterlife, and resurrection cloaked in rich turquoise and gold. This image reminds you how much the Egyptians were obsessed with death and the afterlife, a topic that dominated their art architecture and daily routines. But it's not all solemnity. The god story also carried hope, promising renewal beyond the grave. You spot a group of novices learning sacred dances and songs, their movements slow and deliberate, intended to please the gods and maintain cosmic order. You find it oddly touching to watch these young people learning rituals that will shape their entire lives. It strikes you that the temple was also a school, a conservatory of culture and faith, passing down knowledge that blended theology with politics. Outside the temple walls, farmers arrived to deliver grain as offerings, some dressed in simple homespun, and others in finer cloth-bearing wicker baskets brimming with the harvest. These gifts were taxes, but also offerings to keep the gods appeased and the land fertile. The temple controlled vast granaries, so you realize these farmers were deeply tied to the spiritual economy, their fate linked with divine favor. Suddenly, a ceremonial procession winds through the courtyard, priests carrying statues on litters, accompanied by musicians playing wooden flutes and percussion instruments. The rhythmic beating echoes off stone walls, stirring a mix of awe and reverence in the watching crowd. You notice the priests wear collars and amulets adorned with protective symbols, believed to shield them from evil forces, a reminder that the ancient world was full of unseen dangers, both spiritual and physical. You recall a fringe theory that suggests some temple rituals were not just religious, but also early forms of psychotherapy ceremonies that helped communities cope with disease, death, and hardship through collective catharsis. It's fascinating to think how faith and healing intertwined in such deep ways. Your eyes rest on the elaborate hieroglyphs decorating the temple walls, scenes of pharaohs receiving blessings from gods, cosmic battles, and symbols of eternal life. The artists who carved these images worked with religious devotion, knowing their work would last through eternity. You realize the temple wasn't just a place for the living, but a monument to memory itself, bridging past, present, and future. As you step back into the fading light, the temple's shadow stretches long across the land, a silent guardian over the village. You carry with you the weight and wonder of this sacred place, a reminder that even thousands of years ago people sought meaning and order in a world full of chaos. You leave the solemn grandeur of the temple behind and wander toward the bustling riverbank where the Nile quietly flows its waters, both a giver and taker of life. The river is the pulse of ancient Egypt, its predictable flooding the foundation of everything. agriculture, transportation, and even religious rituals. You watch fishermen casting their nets from slender wooden boats, their movements rhythmic and practiced, a dance passed down through generations. The water reflects the warm golden light of the late afternoon, shimmering like scattered pieces of lapis lazuli. It's strange to think how utterly dependent everyone was on this mighty river, yet how little they understood its deeper currents. You might find it amusing that some Egyptians believed the Nile was a divine serpent, its waters the blood of the god Hapi. This divine association gave the river a near mystical status, polluting. It was considered a serious offense punishable by harsh penalties. Yet people still bathed, washed clothes, and disposed of waste along its banks, a reminder that reality often clashed with reverence. Nearby children splash and play their laughter, mingling with the calls of water birds and the clatter of pottery being unloaded from cargo boats. The riverbank is also a marketplace for goods from distant lands, ebony from Nubia, cedar from Lebanon, and precious stones from the Sinai. You notice a trader weighing a bundle of finely woven linens against silver pieces, negotiating with the lively customer. Trade was Egypt's lifeblood, and the Nile its highway. Historians still argue whether trade alone or combined with military power maintained Egypt's dominance over neighboring regions. As twilight falls, the riverbank takes on a mystical quality. You spot a small shrine where a family offers bread beer and flowers to the river god, hoping to secure safe passage and good fishing. These personal rituals offer a glimpse into daily spirituality, a quieter complement to the grand temple ceremonies you saw earlier. It's touching to witness such intimate acts of faith amid the vastness of the Nile's presence. You catch a whiff of the smoky aroma from a nearby fire where women roast fish and boil dates in large clay pots. Food smells like home here, simple but nourishing. One peculiar detail you remember: Egyptians loved their beer thick, sweet, and often homemade in small batches by women. This wasn't just a drink, but a staple of their diet and social life, shared in both celebrations and mundane moments. Beer was so important that workers building pyramids were paid in daily rations of it. Looking out across the river, you spot a reed boat gliding silently, its sail catching the evening breeze. It seems to float between worlds, the earthly and the divine. These boats weren't just transport. They carried symbolic meaning too. Pharaohs were believed to journey with the sun god Ra across the sky in a celestial bark, battling chaos during the night and ensuring sunrise. You appreciate how deeply myth and everyday life were entwined. Nearby, an elderly man mends fishing nets with painstaking patience, his fingers weaving the twine with decades of experience. You wonder what stories he might tell of floods and droughts, of battles and festivals of hopes that outlasted hardships. His quiet presence feels like a living thread connecting you to generations long gone. As the stars begin to sprinkle the sky, you notice the faint glow of oil lamps along the river's edge. Their flickering light dances on the water's surface, creating a shimmering mirror of the heavens. Egyptians closely watched the stars, reading them as omens or guides, believing the cosmos was a reflection of divine order on earth. Some fringe theories even suggest that ancient Egyptians practiced early forms of astronomy, not just for practical reasons, but as a spiritual discipline. The cool night air carries a hushed stillness, broken only by the occasional splash of a fish or the distant call of a night bird. It's easy to forget that beneath this peaceful scene, life was often harsh and precarious. Yet the Nile remained a constant companion, its flow a reassuring rhythm in a world of change. You leave the riverbank with a sense of wonder, carrying the sound of water and the warmth of human life flowing through it. The Nile is not just a river, it's the heart of a civilization pulsing through the veins of history. You step away from the Nile's gentle murmur and enter the bustling heart of an ancient Egyptian village as dawn breaks. The air is thick with the aroma of freshly baked bread and the sharp tang of herbs crushed for morning medicine. Women gather around large clay ovens, pulling out flatbreads and cooling them on woven mats. Children run barefoot between mud brick homes, their laughter ringing out like small bells. The village is alive with the quiet rituals of daily life, a world of ordinary people doing extraordinary things just to survive. You notice the humble homes, low and rectangular, built from sun-dried mud bricks with wooden beams holding up thatched roofs. The walls are often whitewashed, and bright splashes of indigo or saffron decorate door frames or simple frescoes of lotus flowers and papyrus reeds. The interiors are sparse but functional woven mats on the floor, wooden stools, small pottery vessels for water and oil. You realize that privacy, as we understand it, was a luxury. Family life spilled into shared spaces, and neighbors were as close as blood. As you wander, a farmer emerges from the fields carrying a bundle of freshly harvested wheat balanced on his shoulder. You watch him exchange greetings with neighbors, his hands rough but steady. Farming was the backbone of the village economy, and the rhythms of the land dictated life's pace. You recall the careful irrigation systems, canals dug by hand sluice gates, directing the Nile's bounty that made this desert bloom. Without these, the rich soil would remain a barren dust bowl. Overhead, you catch sight of a falcon circling against the pale morning sky, an emblem of the god Horus Protector, of the pharaoh and symbol of kingship. Statues and amulets of falcons are common in homes and marketplaces, blending religious devotion with everyday superstition. You smile at the thought that the same bird seen soaring above is both a divine messenger and a simple hunter chasing mice from the grain stores. You pause at a communal well where women gather to fill large clay jars with cool water. Their colorful robes draped with fine pleats ripple gently in the breeze, and their voices rise in song as they work. The well is a social hub, a place where news travels faster than any official decree. You overhear snippets of gossip, complaints about taxes, and hopeful chatter about the upcoming festival of Apet, the time when the statues of gods would travel in procession, blessing the land. Near the village square, a craftsman shapes a wooden figurine of Bes the dwarf god, who protects homes from evil spirits and childbirth woes. His workshop smells of cedar and resin, and you watch as he carves with a mix of reverence and skill. You recall the odd but charming fact that Bes was one of the few gods portrayed in a way that encouraged laughter. A reminder that even in a world shaped by gods and fate, humor found its place. A young scribe passes by carrying a bundle of papyrus scrolls. You remember that literacy was rare and precious, limited to scribes and officials who spent years mastering the intricate hieroglyphic script. These scrolls contain not only laws and taxes, but also poetry letters and medical texts. Historians still argue whether scribes were mere bureaucrats or secret keepers of knowledge and power. As the sun climbs higher, you're invited to join a meal of lentil stew and freshly baked bread shared under the shade of a sycamore tree. The flavors are simple, yet satisfying earthy pulses. Sharp herbs, a hint of salt. Food here is never just sustenance. It's a connection to the land and to one another. You sip water from a small ceramic cup warmed by the sun, and think about the subtle balance of scarcity and abundance in this ancient world. Suddenly, the sound of distant drums breaks the morning calm musicians preparing for a local celebration. Music and dance are integral to village life, marking everything from births to harvests to funerals. You feel the pulse of the drum vibrate through your chest, a heartbeat shared across time. As you prepare to leave, a friendly elder approaches offering a small bundle of dried herbs and a piece of advice. Respect the land, honor the gods, and never forget the stories your ancestors told. It's a simple truth wrapped in the wisdom of centuries, reminding you that even in the humblest corners of ancient Egypt, life was rich with meaning. You drift away from the village square and find yourself drawn toward the sacred heart of ancient Egyptian spiritual life, the temple complex. Massive columns carved with hieroglyphs rise like a forest of stone, their capitals shaped like lotus blossoms and papyrus stalks, symbols of creation and renewal. The air smells faintly of incense, frankincense, and myrrh, a fragrant veil hanging over the rituals unfolding beneath the bright blue sky. Inside the temple courtyard, priests clad in crisp white linen robes prepare for the daily offering. Their shaved heads gleam under the sun, while necklaces of carnelian and lapis lazuli catch the light with every movement. You notice their bare feet padding softly on the polished limestone floor, a reminder of their humble service despite the grandeur around them. The temple is both a house for the gods and a center of economic and political power, a place where the divine and the earthly intertwine. One priest raises a golden censer, wafting smoke around a statue of Amun-Ra, the king of gods. The statue, carved from alabaster, gleams with traces of paint, reds, blues, and gold leaf shimmering despite centuries of wear. You watch as the priest recites prayers in a language that sounds like music, a litany meant to sustain the cosmic order and ensure the sun's daily rebirth. The precision of these rituals is impressive, yet you wonder if the priests truly believed every word, or if it was as much about power and tradition. Outside temple workers unload baskets of grain livestock, and finely woven textiles offerings from farmers and nobles alike. Temples controlled vast estates and were major economic engines employing farmers, craftsmen, scribes, and laborers. You think of the irony that these spiritual centers were also bustling hubs of commerce, their sacred aura mingling with the practicalities of wealth and influence. Nearby, a group of young novices practice reading hieroglyphs under the stern eye of an elder scribe. Their brushes scratch papyrus scrolls as they copy sacred texts, preparing for a lifetime dedicated to service. Literacy here is a sacred skill, almost magical, granting access to knowledge both divine and worldly. You remember that some scholars still debate whether the complexity of hieroglyphs limited widespread literacy or preserved a sacred mystique. At the temple entrance, a musician plays a harp, its delicate strings weaving a gentle melody that seems to slow time itself. The music accompanies dancers whose flowing white garments catch the light, their movements a blend of reverence and celebration. You notice the tiny gilded details on the dancers' jewelry, the kind of craftsmanship that tells you nothing was too small to honor the gods. Suddenly, a festival crowd gathers, their faces a mix of awe and joy. Today they celebrate the Feast of Opet, a grand event where the statues of Amun-Mut and Khonsu are carried in procession from Karnak to Luxor. The air buzzes with anticipation and prayer, a moment when the divine presence walks among the people, blessing the land and reaffirming the pharaoh's divine right to rule. You join the procession, feeling the rhythm of drums and chanting grow louder. The scent of lotus flowers and myrrh fills your senses as priests carry the sacred barks, ornate boats carrying the gods' images on their shoulders. The crowd follows, spilling laughter and tears, hope and devotion into the dusty streets. This is not just a ceremony, but a living connection to eternity, a reminder that even in a fragile, unpredictable world, the gods endure. As the sun dips low, the temple's shadows stretch long, and the golden light softens the carved stones. You step back, heartful, thinking of the delicate balance between earthly power and spiritual faith of how these ancient rituals shaped a civilization's soul. The temple is more than a building, it's a heartbeat, a pulse echoing through millennia. You find yourself once again at the riverbank, the mighty Nile heart of Egypt, lifeblood of a civilization so ancient it feels like the pulse of the world itself. The sun is low, painting the sky in shades of saffron and russet, and the air hums with the mingled scents of mud, papyrus, and cooking fires drifting from nearby homes. This isn't just a river, it's a stage for the daily dance of survival, trade, ritual, and gossip. You step closer to the water's edge and watch the scene unfold as if time itself folds around you. Along the shore, wooden feluccas with their triangular sails glide lazily across the shimmering surface, their crews expertly balancing poles and ropes calling out in the rhythmic cadence of ancient words. The boats carry everything, baskets brimming with figs and dates, pottery jars sealed with beeswax, bundles of flax ready to be spun into linen. You notice a group of fishermen pulling in nets heavy with Nile perch and catfish, their skin bronzed by relentless sun and hands scarred from decades of labor. The river's bounty is generous, but it demands respect and some guesswork. The river's annual flood, that great life-giving inundation, has just begun to recede, leaving behind fertile mud that farmers will soon plow. You imagine the first furrows cutting through the glistening earth, the excitement mingled with anxiety as families hope for enough to stave off hunger through the coming year. Harvest festivals full of music and dance are still weeks away, but already the air thrums with anticipation. Nearby, a woman in a flowing indigo robe washes cloth in the shallows, her hands steady despite the current's pull. Beside her, children splash and laugh their carefree joy, a sharp contrast to the seriousness of adult life here. You realize that even amid uncertainty, war, famine, the ever-present threat of illness, there's room for laughter. It's a human stubbornness baked into the soil of this land. Look closer and you spot the small wooden shrine set beneath a towering sycamore tree. Inside, tiny statuettes of Hathor and Osiris catch the light gilded and bright against the shadowed leaves. Offerings of bread and beer sit at the base, fresh and inviting. People here don't just live alongside the river, they live through it, placing their trust in divine forces that govern the ebb and flow of everything from the Nile's waters to their own fortunes. A man approaches carrying a basket of lotus flowers, their pale petals delicately stained with faint pink. He places them gently at the shrine, murmuring prayers you can't quite catch but feel the weight of. The lotus is a symbol of rebirth emerging pure and bright from the murky depths, something that surely resonates with a people who have seen empires rise and fall beside these same waters. Not far off, a group of scribes huddle under a makeshift canopy, their reed pens scratching across papyrus scrolls. Their robes of saffron and teal ripple in the gentle breeze. You catch fragments of their conversation reports on grain yields, temple accounts, perhaps even the latest gossip about the palace, intrigues upstream. Literacy is rare and revered, a power held by the few shaping the flow of information, much like the Nile shapes the land. The scene shifts as you notice a procession making its way toward the river's edge. Priests clad in white linen, some with painted faces and elaborate collars, carry sacred relics. Their chants rise and fall like the waves themselves, a haunting melody that seems to weave the mortal world with the divine. A child follows closely, clutching a small basket of incense, trailing fragrant smoke that mingles with the river's natural scents. You sense this ritual is more than ceremony, it is an act of hope, a plea for balance between humans and gods in a world that often feels precarious. Beyond the immediate bustle, the vast expanse of papyrus reeds sways, hiding small wildlife and fishermen's secret paths. You catch a glimpse of a waterbuck slipping silently through the greenery, alert to the sounds of civilization, but unafraid. The Nile is a borderland between worlds tamed by human hands, yet wild at its core. The riverbank soil is soft, a dark mix of mud and sand that smells faintly of decay and new life. You kneel and touch it, feeling a cool dampness seep into your fingers, grounding you in the reality of this place. It's no mere backdrop, but an active participant in the story-shaping settlements, feeding families, and even inspiring art and myth. You recall the tales of Happy the Nile god who brings the flood and renews the earth. His image depicted as a pot-bellied man with water plants sprouting from his shoulders. A reminder that life and death flow side by side here. As twilight deepens, torches flicker to life along the riverbank, casting warm glows on stone steps worn smooth by generations of feet. Families gather for evening meals, flatbread roasted beans, onions and fish grilled over open flames. Laughter and music fill the air, mingling with the gentle lap of water. You think about how despite all the grand monuments and divine kings, it's these moments, the smells of cooking fires, the sound of children's laughter, the quiet prayers by the water that truly define life here. You also notice the sharp contrast between this riverbank scene and the hidden struggles beneath the surface. Historians still argue whether the Nile's bounty could fully shield Egypt from famines caused by failed harvests or political upheaval elsewhere. The river was a blessing, yes, but it wasn't magic. People lived by its rhythm, yes, but also by their own resilience and sometimes desperation. And then there's the strange little details you might not expect, like how some ancient Egyptians used crocodile dung as a contraceptive. You probably won't survive this fact for a bedtime story. Or how perfume makers on the river's edge concocted scents, from myrrh and frankincense, filling the air with aromas meant to mask the smell of death and decay, a small rebellion against mortality's presence. You realize that living by the Nile wasn't just about survival or prosperity. It was about connection to the gods, to the land, to each other. It was about finding meaning in the daily miracles of life and water, shadow, and light. The Nile was a mirror reflecting the hopes and fears of a people whose legacy still ripples across millennia. As you stand and prepare to leave the riverbank behind the last rays of sun gild, the water like molten gold, and a gentle breeze stirs the reeds in a whispered lullaby. The day fades, but the river flows on eternal and unyielding, just like the spirit of those who called its banks home. You walk now away from the Nile's embrace, stepping into the bustling heart of an ancient Egyptian town at dusk. The air is cooler here, but still tinged with the scents of cooking fires, fresh bread, and something less pleasant. A faint whiff of refuse piled by the street corner. Life in the town pulses with a mixture of urgency and routine, like a well-rehearsed play where everyone knows their cues but still hopes for a surprise. You move through narrow lanes paved unevenly with sandstone slabs lined by mud brick homes, topped with reed mats to block the harsh sun. Children dart between legs, their bare feet slapping softly against the stones, chasing one another, while their mothers call warnings and laughter in equal measure. You hear the distinctive clatter of wooden clogs and the rhythmic pounding of a mallet, shaping pottery on a wheel. Market stalls burst with color. Saffron-dyed textiles, indigo-dipped linens, baskets of dried figs and salted fish and jars sealed with beeswax, all displayed with a casual pride. Traders shout their wares using a language rich with idioms you only partly understand. At the town square, a group of men gather around a storyteller reciting tales of gods and heroes. His voice rises and falls, punctuated with dramatic gestures. You sense the power these stories hold, not just as entertainment, but as a means of preserving culture and passing wisdom through generations. You remember the papyrus scrolls scribes labor over by the river, and realize oral storytelling is another vital thread in this tapestry of knowledge. Near the temple, priests in crisp white linen robes prepare for evening rites. The scent of burning frankincense curls into the sky, mixing with the soft chanting that vibrates through stone and air. You watch as a young acolyte nervously carries a small offering, a loaf of bread, and a cup of beer toward the altar. The temple is the town's spiritual nucleus, a place where divine and mortal worlds brush lightly together. You notice a small, somewhat surprising detail. Some townsfolk, especially women, carry tiny amulets shaped like scarabs or eyes of Horus. These are charms against evil, sickness, and misfortune. A reminder that while gods might be mighty, everyday people have their own arsenal of protection. You wonder about the belief behind these talismans, how they comfort as much as they guard. Historians still argue whether such charms were more about faith or social status, but either way they were essential to daily life. In the shadow of a granary, a group of laborers unload sacks of barley, their sweat glistening as they work the last light. Nearby, a baker shapes loaves of emmer wheat bread, his hands moving with practiced ease. Bread here is more than food. It's a symbol of life itself, shared at meals, used in rituals, and even given as payment to workers and servants. You think about how such simple sustenance underpins the whole society. There's also a quirky side to this town. Some people still insist on using crocodile dung, not just as contraception as you learned by the river, but in surprisingly creative ways like a primitive adhesive, or even as a beauty treatment, a gross yet fascinating historical fact. Or consider the hairdressers who mix crushed henna and ashes to dye hair sometimes, with unexpected green or red hues turning heads quite literally. As night falls, oil lamps are lit, their flames flickering behind reed shutters. The town quiets but never fully sleeps. A street musician strums a lyre, and you catch a few lyrics about the god Thoth keeper of wisdom and writing. It's a reminder of the importance of knowledge in a world often ruled by ritual and hierarchy. You wonder about the lives behind these songs, ordinary people who found joy and meaning in small moments despite the weight of their world. In the darkened corners of the town, whispers tell of political intrigues and rivalries among the local elite, wealthy landowners who wield influence with a mixture of piety and power. Their decisions ripple down to farmers and craftsmen like you, shaping futures in ways you don't always see. Historians still argue whether the local power struggles were pivotal in the larger Egyptian dynastic shifts, or just footnotes in the long march of history. You feel the pulse of this ancient town, its hopes, fears, and stubborn everyday life continuing under the ever-watchful eyes of gods and ancestors. It's not a place frozen in time, but a living, breathing world where ordinary people navigate their stories alongside the grand narratives of kings and temples. As you settle down for the night in a simple mud brick home, the cool breeze brings the scent of flowering acacia, and the distant calls of night birds soothe your restless mind. You think about the resilience required to live here, to find beauty in the ordinary and hope in the uncertain. Just before sleep claims, you remember that even in the harshest moments, the ancient Egyptians found ways to laugh, to love, and to dream, a testament to human spirit that spans millennia. You awake to a soft golden light filtering through your reed window, the warm rays spilling across your woven mat, and the humble mud brick walls of your home. Outside, the familiar sounds of morning stirrings, chickens clucking, the distant lowing of cattle, and the rhythmic thud of a water drawer filling an earthen jar greet your senses like an old comforting song. Today, like countless others in this ancient land, promises to be both ordinary and extraordinary, woven tightly into the rich tapestry of Egyptian life. As you step outside, the heat of the sun is gentle at first, coaxing the scent of blooming lotus flowers from the nearby canal. The Nile is your lifeline constant, yet ever-changing, with fishermen already casting nets and waterfowl gliding across its mirrored surface. You pause to take in the hum of activity, women washing clothes on the riverbank, children playing under the watchful eyes of elders, and merchants preparing their stalls with bundles of dates, figs, and fresh bread. Your feet crunch softly on the sand-dusted street as you join the flow of neighbors making their way to work, or temple exchanging greetings in the ancient tongue, their voices blending into a soothing, rhythmic murmur. You notice how every aspect of this day is threaded with layers of belief and routine. Priests prepare incense for offerings. Farmers check their fields for signs of the coming harvest. Scribes carry bundles of papyrus, each action imbued with meaning beyond the practical. Yet beneath this surface of harmony, you recall the fragility of it all. The desert wind carries whispers of past famines, political unrest, and the ever-looming threat of the Nile's unpredictable floods. Historians still argue whether Egypt's resilience was due more to the stability of the Nile or the unyielding spirit of its people. Either way, that resilience is palpable here, alive, in the smiles of children chasing after a rolling ball made of woven reeds in the patient hands of craftsmen, shaping pottery or carving wood, and in the quiet prayers of a mother clutching her infant. You glance at the small scarab amulet resting against your chest, a tiny talisman against misfortune, a link to those who came before. It's a reminder that hope, faith, and the everyday magic of belief are as vital to survival as food and water. Sometimes you catch yourself smiling at the thought of how much has changed and yet how much remains the same. After all, even the ancient Egyptians had their share of gallows humor. There are tales of court jesters and tricksters who made light of the powerful, proving that laughter is timeless. As the sun climbs higher, you find yourself at the bustling market, once more surrounded by colors, scents, and the endless rhythm of life. You buy a piece of honeycomb, its golden sweetness a small indulgence, and pause to watch an elderly storyteller weaving a tale of Osiris and Isis, gods of death and rebirth. The story resonates deeply, themes of endings and beginnings that mirror the cycles you witness every day. As evening approaches, you settle beside a flickering oil lamp, the soft glow casting dancing shadows on your walls. You reflect on the day, on the lives intertwined here, farmers, scribes, priests, children, merchants, and on your own place within this ancient world. The past is not distant, but a living, breathing presence carrying lessons, mysteries, and the enduring warmth of human connection. I'll be here with another story for you tomorrow night. The night deepens and the world grows quiet. The flicker of stars overhead twinkles gently like the whispered secrets of countless generations. You feel yourself sinking deeper into the soft embrace of sleep, the rhythms of the ancient Nile lulling you with their timeless melody. Each breath slows steady and calm as the days of toil and wonder drift away, replaced by the gentle glow of dreams. Remember that the people you've walked alongside tonight were no different from us in their hopes and fears. They lived, loved, and sought meaning just as we do. Their stories ripple through time, connecting past to present with invisible threads. In this moment, those threads weave around you too, a comforting tapestry of resilience and grace. So rest easy knowing that you belong to a lineage of dreamers, survivors, and storytellers. Tomorrow awaits with fresh tales, fresh wonders. Until then, tuck yourself in, slow your breathing, and let the past keep you company tonight.